First of all, I would like to thank PRIS for their invitation and the opportunity to speak to all of you today on precision medicine. And I would like to thank my colleague, also Dr. Saeed Ismail, for an excellent overview where he gave really excellent examples about precision medicine and about the data and about some of the challenges in implementing precision medicine. What I want to do today is actually build on what Dr. Saeed has discussed. You might see a couple of points repeated, but those are repeated in a different context, and I'll make those points. I'm part of Qatar Foundation, part of WISH, the World Innovation Summit for Health. So I'll give you just a couple of brief slides about an overview about WISH. We'll talk about precision medicine in terms of a definition, but it would be a segue in terms of how precision medicine actually impacted or affected drug development, and specifically personal genomics. And from there, I will go into the e-health revolution. And then we can talk a little bit about future direction in terms of what's happening in terms of healthcare. While there might not be wide implementation of precision medicine today, and that reflects perhaps the capacity of some of the countries. It reflects the capability of the healthcare infrastructure. It reflects also the financial muscle. But overall, what you are seeing in the marketplace is a stepwise implementation of precision medicine. So as I said, I'm part of WISH, the World Innovation Summit for Health. We are a global initiative under Qatar Foundation, and it's under the patronage of Her Highness Sheikh Mouza bint Nasser. She's the chairperson of Qatar Foundation. While perhaps WISH is known largely for being a global community of leading innovators, and it's known for its biennial summit, we have an ongoing range of initiatives internally in terms of what I lead in terms of evidence-based healthcare research and policy. And my CEO is Ms. Sultana Afdal, and our executive chair is Lord Darzi. This is what we are known for, the biennial summit, just to give you an idea in terms of the number of people that attend, over usually 2,000 delegates, lots of leaders from the healthcare sector, representation from 118 countries, governments represented, health ministers, and I believe in our last summit in 2018, also Jordan delegation was well represented in the summit. So if you look at this collectively in terms of representation, that represents about 1/3 of the world population. That's 2.6 billion people. That's 1 in 3 people. And you are talking about a health budget of these countries that's in excess of 1.4 trillion US dollars. So when people talk about precision medicine, I think they think it's a new concept. And I want to take you back almost 400 years before Christ, BC. And Hippocrates said, it is far more important to know what person the disease has than what disease the person has. So this is a very sort of fine definition in the English language, that it's important to know what person the disease has as opposed to what disease the person has. And in the more modern era, in 1892, Sir William Osler said, if it were not for the great variability among individuals, medicine might as well be a science and not an art. So this is a recognition of the complexity of the human being. And certainly, as Dr. Saeed has mentioned, it's a reflection of the human genome, where he said there are only 20,000 genes that are yet 2%, 20 or 30,000 genes. 2% are coding, the rest is non-coding, and you have all kinds of interactions amongst those genes, but also you have the interaction with the environment. And he also mentioned something about defining precision medicine in terms of what is current practice, which is really trial and error. And that's what I wanted to get to in order to lead into drug discovery and development, versus the approach today in terms of precision medicine, which is to give the right treatment for the right person and the right time. And Dr. Saeed mentioned about how that is not just about treatment, but also about diagnosis and prevention. So let me illustrate this. So you have a population, and this population suffers from a certain disease. And when you are running a clinical trial, you select people from those populations, and only a certain people that receive the drug. But it's possible that this drug is not applicable to the entire disease population, but only for a specific portion of the population. And this is very important, as I will show in the next couple of slides, versus the approach that you are developing a drug to a subpopulation. That's called in precision medicine stratification. That means certain groups with a certain kind of disease that share certain genomic background, then those are the people that would respond to the drug. Now, why I say this is extremely important in terms of drug discovery and drug development. Drug discovery development is a continuum, and it's a lengthy journey. It starts from basic research to preclinical to going into clinical phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and finally getting to approval. If you look at the success ratio, by the time you get into phase 3 clinical trial before approval, that's only one, you have 1 in 2, 1.5 in terms of success. But equally important, you need to look at the cost of these clinical trials. So a failure is extremely costly. And there are lots of drugs in the beginning that fail in the preclinical stage. That's almost 1 in 12, you know, even in phase 1 and phase 2, just because it makes it to phase 1 or phase 2, that doesn't mean it is successful. And if you look at the time it takes, it's also lengthy. I mean, the discovery phase could be anywhere from 5 to 10 years, and then you get into the preclinics and then the clinics. So if you look at the overall duration, and this is data that needs to be updated because it's from 2016, but it's on average, it takes you about 15 years in order just to get a drug approved and on the market. And during those 15 years, that you have conducted probably 24 clinical trials and you only had one success or one drug that makes it to the market. And sometimes people complain about the prices of drugs because that one successful drug that gets on the market needs to pay for all the failures that has taken place before that drug got on the market. So the cost today is almost $2 billion. It takes 15 years and $2 billion before a drug makes it on the market. So it's lengthy, it's inefficient, and it's costly. Okay? How that slightly is changing, and particularly in the cancer area. And this is just illustrative because because really precision medicine, the way it got ushered in, it's because of its impact specifically on cancer and cancer therapeutics, and the extension into companion diagnostics. That means a diagnostic test specific for a particular drug, as Dr. Saeed has mentioned. So as you can see, in the beginning of 2000, there are greater successes in terms of clinical trials and bringing drugs to market because of this precision medicine approach that focuses really on really a targeted population that are responders. So I'm almost assured that my clinical trial will be successful. My drug that I will treat the person will respond and will get the benefit of that treatment. So this is all and well. So that's one great impact, a tangible example that we can see in terms of drug discovery and drug development. But one of the other impacts that is really changing, and there's a paradigm shift that's not only in terms of implementation of precision medicine, but also in terms of the response of the market to precision medicine. In a recent survey, one of the top 10 trends in biology has been identified as personal genomics. And Dr. Saeed mentioned how that has been enabled by driving the cost down. And today one can do a sequence of a genome for less than $1,000, actually, nowadays, less than $1,000. And they can get it in within a day, actually. Not necessarily all the data, but at least the effort. And this sort of personal genomics approach, why it has attracted businesses and why it is an important trend. And where you have seen this sort of healthcare impact, you can see that Amazon, although this is a piloted program and it's only applicable to people who work within Amazon, but Amazon, if you think of Amazon, you think of just an e-commerce, a marketplace where you go and order your stuff. But nowadays, Amazon has sort of got into the area of healthcare in terms of actually delivering prescription, in terms of although it's over-the-counter drugs, but they are moving into a more specific, personalized or precision medicine approach by applying their technology, their AI technology and analytic technology on their employee. Google has also expanded more into health and digital health. As a matter of fact, if any one of you have heard of 23andMe, which actually was founded by the founders of Google, it's an independent company. Where it has the only FDA-approved direct-to-consumer genomic testing. I mean, actually, I have done that. I submitted a sample to them when I was in the US. And within a few days, I got reports on my genome and my risks and all that. So that is available. I mean, this is a sort of a business, a venture. It's on the marketplace. It's an application of precision medicine, personalized genomics, and really a reflection of the push that's being taking place, and as well as other companies, So as this becomes sort of widespread, and Dr. Said talked about the technology, and I'll make a specific point about how this is being enabled, then this becomes affordable to the masses. in the beginning, and I think many of you perhaps might remember, or some of you might remember, that at some point a typewriter was being used to type things, but now you are using computers. At some point, there was no mobile phones, or the mobile phones was really huge and only select groups had access to that technology. But now mobile phones is pretty much widespread. And I want to drive this because it has really an impact on digital health or e-health, as I will. So when we talk about digital health, one should ask themselves, why should I care? Why should I care about really healthcare in terms of really the ICT perspective? Where this sort of computer science and the internet and this technology is going to benefit. I think one thing that captures this is the saying of Benjamin Franklin, who's one of the founders of present-day United States of America, is an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And that's what sort of Dr. Said was talking about, is you're not talking about the sick people and the treatment or just the diagnosis, but going into the prevention area. So let me illustrate this. Why personal genomics as a trend has become the number one, and why companies like Google, Amazon, and in the future Facebook are migrating towards health. I think it has been an astute observation by Steve Jobs, if you don't recognize the picture. I remember actually when Apple was launched, and I remember when sort of this talk in terms of where things are headed in terms of science. I remember from his talk, he said, I think the biggest innovation of the 21st century will be the intersection of biology and technology. And it is a new era that's going to usher. And Dr. Said talked about really you can do the sort of genome and you're going to generate lots of data and you overlay that with other sets of omics and there is another set of data. But where are you going to go from here? So he talked about one component, which bioinformatics, but I want to take this concept a little bit more globally and to talk to you about, yes, it's about bioinformatics, but there are things that are more just bioinformatics in terms of how they're going to impact e-health and digital health. So let me illustrate this. Although this is data from the US, but it drives the idea of technology adoption. So this is US-centric data that talks about how long it took in order for a technology to be adopted by a quarter of the population. As you can see, in the beginning, it used to take, like for electricity to be adopted, it took 46 years. Television, TV, it took 26 years. PC, when it first was launched in 1975, it took 16 years for at least a bit of mass adoption. But as you migrate later and later, you can see how the mobile phone industry and the web, that there is a shrinking in terms of our behavior as consumers in adopting technology. Now, why this is important? This is important because now I believe we are entering what's called the digital revolution age, digital health revolution age. If you look at the industrial revolution, it was over a period of 80-some years, okay? The digital revolution, that is since the introduction of computers and the web and the internet and so forth, it took maybe 30-some years. But now in 2008, the beginning of the e-health, and we are at the beginning of this revolution. We have ahead of us some 70 years, and you can imagine the type of growth that's going to take place. And certainly this is going to be driven by two components, which I will mention on one of my last slides. So keep this in mind, that the way, as Dr. Said said, the way we're going to practice medicine is going to be completely different. And I particularly sort of mention this point for those who are in medical school today, because many of the things that you're going to learn, you're going to have to sort of learn more things or a different way of doing things. And I also specifically talk to professors that teach today in medical schools, and I've given these lectures at different places, and I've talked to lots of different schools about innovation in the medical curriculum and bringing it to age, and this modernization is very important, because you're going to discover that not only in medical school, but once you are doing your rotation, once you are doing your residency, once you are doing your fellowship, you're going to see yourself more dependent on these type of tools in terms of the digital health. So Dr. Said talked about one component, which is the data, and he talked about the bioinformatics. But if you talk about healthcare and from a global perspective, you're going to see data expansion in terms of three vectors. I mean, for those who have taken calculus and math, if you remember, you have three vectors, X, Y, and Z. And what you are seeing today in terms of the expansion of the data, it's basically in terms of data variety. You have structured data, you have unstructured data, you sort of have nowadays also social media, you have data velocity, there is this drive towards real time, and then the data volume. And I remember my first Apple computer, the memory of it was only 2 megabytes. And today you can probably buy a computer with a terabyte memory. Just to show you how in these few years have this technology shrank the number of years, and how we can almost double our progress every couple of years. So keep in mind that data is not just about numerical data or specific data, but about data variety, about data volume, about data velocity. And if you list all that, you have this sort of big data. And I want to illustrate this actually with a real example. I don't think my colleague at the University of California, Irvine, will mind that. This is Larry Sumner. Larry Smarrs, and basically, if one makes an experiment, if you do an experiment on yourself, and today maybe you have your mobile phone and you have maybe one of the health apps. So if you look at your own data, you can see how this expansion just for one person, in terms of, if you look at your weight, that's only a one data point. Your weight is X. If you look at sort of your clinical chemistry profile and the different tests that you are doing, maybe there are some 100 types of different clinical biochemistry tests for those who are in medical technology. That's, you can say, okay, 100 data point. But now when you talk about overlaying with your genome data, and if you start overlaying the other types of data that Dr. Said was about, you can see how this sort of exponentially growing, and the need to manage that. So you have to have the right infrastructure and the right capability in order to do that. If this is only for one person, imagine if you want to apply that at a population level. But at the end of the day, in terms of our precision medicine, our holy grail is not to benefit only one person, but to benefit the population. So in the future, as Dr. Said said, maybe everything will be on a chip. Maybe everything will be stored in one corner of a computer, and the doctor only need to access that information. And people think sometimes this is far-fetched, or maybe they think this is, a dream. But I give the example of landing on the moon. If you told people that we're gonna land on the moon, people thought you are crazy. I mean, how are we gonna do that? But it's been 50 years now since we've landed on the moon. So what you might think today is not possible. The way technology is progressing, in the near future, it might take 10, 20, or 30 years, it will be possible. And Dr. Said showed that, and I'm showing it for a different purpose, actually, because people nowadays even talking about implantable chips. In other words, you can carry your medical record wherever you go. And as a matter of fact, this is happening through the access of the web. Okay, my doctor is in the U.S., and I live and work in Doha, Qatar. And I have access to my medical record, and if I do some kind of a test here, I want to consult my physician. It's a two-way exchange. So this is a sort of a trend that's happening. As a matter of fact, at least in radiology and diagnosis, I mean, at least in the US, in terms of some of the hospitals, they have contracts with sort of physicians or clinics that are in India, and they take the x-rays in the morning, they submit them late in the afternoon, and the next day they come back to work, and the x-ray has been read and diagnosed. And so this is just to show you, have not only people talk about trade and marketing and movement of goods, but also you are talking about the movement of healthcare and the movement of that data. So, Dr. Said has raised lots of social and ethical issues. It's not my place here to talk about that or what my opinions are on it, but it's just, I want you to think, especially for those who are in the healthcare industry that practicing today, or the students, or how these things are dynamic now and are going to change. Now, Dr. Said talked about the efforts that are taking place in Doha, Qatar, and basically in terms of the genomics. So, Anna, I want to coalesce all what he has talking about into the drive towards what's called personalized healthcare. Okay, so you do this precision medicine, you do all this work about biobanking, you do about the sort of studies about disease development, you try to understand subclinical versus clinical manifestation, and COVID is an example of that, right? I mean, there are people that might be infected but asymptomatic. Others, they get infected, they become symptomatic, they have clinical manifestation. So understanding that continuum is the drive towards a personalized healthcare. Perhaps this is possible today, and as Dr. Said mentioned, a couple of examples like in Iceland, Estonia, Faroe Islands. But if how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So even in a population, a large population, genetically, a large population is not the same. So even with the drive in terms of Qatar genome, if you look at the population in
Dr.
Qatar.
Walid, I've been told to tell you that you have 5 minutes.
Sorry about that. I'm almost done. So in terms of that, genetically, the population in Qatar clusters into 3 subgroups. So you cannot sort of deal with them in the same way. So that's why you see a plethora of companies that are dealing out there that deals with healthcare information, that deals with diagnosis, that deals with sort of the interface with hospitals and the clinics. And I think this is sort of illustrated by the more recent craze in FitBit and others. And FitBit was acquired, as many of you know, multi-billion-dollar company by, I think, Amazon, if I'm not mistaken, or Google. I just wanted to illustrate how the penetration of mobile phones is going to be enabling the digital health revolution. So you can look at the units of PCs that's being sold versus computers, and you can see that lots of mobile phones are being sold. And if you look at the applications and the capability of a phone, only by 3 years difference, 2015 versus 2018, and you can see the migration towards some different healthcare capabilities. You can do ECG now on your iPhone. You can measure blood pressures. You can do the continuous glucose monitoring, blood tests. And these are really actually real devices that out there in the market that doctors in hospitals are using it, or if they are in remote areas. So this revolution is going to enable delivery of healthcare in the Himalaya, in the jungles of the Amazon, in the jungles of Africa. And if you ask physicians, Price Waterhouse have taken a survey in 2012, 59% of physicians said that they think there's going to be a wide adoption of e-health. But in 2014, it's 86%, and today this percentage is higher. As a matter of fact, there are some apps actually approved by the FDA in the US, and they are prescribed. And in 2014, actually, 2 out of 5 physicians are more likely to prescribe. So the direction, the future now is moving more AI, and AI is not just a capability in terms of diagnosis, but it's more. So it's going to make really help in terms of intelligent decisions, in terms of healthcare at the personal level and at the population level. Of course, this is predicated on the plethora of data that's going to be able. And this is just to illustrate the complexity of the data that's out there that needs to be deciphered in order to migrate more towards precision medicine and population health. But healthcare is a continuum. If you look at the big data is only a component from many other healthcare players, whether it's insurance companies, whether it's pharmaceutical companies or private sector, pharmaceutical company. So remember, I mentioned to you what's going to be the future. Things going to be data-driven and business-driven. And let me illustrate to you before I close the following. Investments in AI just last year, companies have raised $1.6 billion. Digital health have raised $3.2 billion in 2019. Today, there are 37 healthcare-related companies. Each company has a value of over $1 billion. So this is about integration. This is about personalized movement towards personalized healthcare, and as you can see, this is gonna be really the interface of medicine and computer science. At the end, I want to thank my leadership and I thank my research team, and I want to thank you for listening. And back to you, Dr. Saeed.